Hello, guys. Welcome again. My name is Madame King, and today we're going to talk about something really, really important, and that is names. We're going to be talking about Bangwa names and kind of walking you through how to understand and translate the names and so forth. And so it's really important for you to really understand the context behind the Bangwa names in order for you to translate or understand what they're talking about. So we're going to talk about that today. And before I start, I just want to say please share this video, subscribe, like. In a lot of African culture, names are incredibly, incredibly important, and people put a lot of effort into naming kids. And so today, pretty much, I'm going to walk you through a couple of things, kind of the context behind how people go about naming their kids, the process, and also some of the meaning of the names and the roots and so forth. So, my goal by the time I leave here is for you to be able to better understand what some of from some pieces of certain names means. So if you're ever out and around the world and you see somebody whose name starts with a certain phrase, you can be like, "Oh, that's about one person," and then it's like click to you, right? So now let's jump in. The first thing that you want to know is that names sort of fit into two categories for the Manwa people. The first one is the circumstantial names, and those are kind of like they're called Belena Fi'i, Belena Fi'i, sort of meaning that those names come about because of something that happened, and then the names were named to commemorate something that happened. So the names are kind of to commemorate something that happened. And so those are not just names that get passed down from generation to generation. Those are names that will be like immediate, right? So, for example, say that say that somebody is born when like a really terrible war starts. They might name them something to commemorate the start of that war, or like maybe somebody is named when your parent died. They might name them something to commemorate like that instant and what it means. And because of that, it's really difficult to translate a lot of names, a lot of Bangwa names, because if somebody named you to commemorate something within your family or in your community, unless you were there or unless the meaning of that name has been passed down from generation to generation, then it's really hard to know exactly what they meant. And a lot of things can be lost in translation. And so sometimes you might have a name that really like you read it, and because you speak in way, you can translate it to mean a certain thing. But then that name really doesn't mean that because the person who named the name had its own unique meaning. So like they kind of put the meaning into the name. Let me give you an example. My mom got to name one of her siblings, and so she named her Anuwo, Anuwo. And that sort of means like whose business or whose thing is it, right? If you really think about that name, like you have no understanding of like my mom intention behind that, you'll be like, what does that even mean? What do you mean whose business? Like how can you name a kid whose business? But then if you talk to her, she will tell you that when she said that, she basically means that a child is everybody's business. So it takes a village to raise a child. In order to have that village, you have to be there. A village is needed to raise a child. So Anuwo will kind of be like a child is a thing of everyone. A child belongs to the community. A community needs to take care of that child. And so, because of the complexity behind how people go about naming their kids, sometimes it's really difficult to name to translate names. And so again, the first uh, route of naming somebody is to name them based on circumstances or things that happen, and you want to commemorate those things. And that is where you get like very tricky definition. And a very minority of Bangla people get their names through that route. A lot of Bangla people will inherit names from like their grandparents, their uncle, or people in the community that have kind of had an impact on their lives. And so say maybe 95% of Bangla people inherit their names from someone. For example, you might have been named after your grandma, or after your great grandma, or after your granddad, or after your great granddad, or after one of your uncle. And that's how people inherit names. So usually the way it happens is that the first child that is born in like a family, the guy or the husband usually gets to name the child first, and then the second one, the wife gets to name, and then they kind of just rotate, right? So every person gets to name the child, like mom and dad, right? So your mom goes second, dad goes first, and they just kind of take turn naming their kids. And when it comes to naming your kids, you can say like I gave birth to a kid and I wanted to name that kid after my grandma. What I will usually do is go to my grandma, usually before like that child is born, and say, "Hey, I want to name my kids after you, or I am giving the name of my child to you." And then grandma can be like, "Yay, thank you. I want it. I want you to name the kid exactly like my name is." "Oh no, I didn't get to name this person, but I think that name will be better suited if we give it to this person. Like I didn't get to name my grandma, and then I want to take the name and give it to my grandma." And then so that happens a lot where like you approach somebody and you tell them that you're naming a kid after them, and they might be like, "Oh, thank you, but I want to give it to that person." And so that happens a lot. And so usually when the person is still alive and you approach them and it's kind of like respectful to tell them that you want to name a kid after them before you name a kid after them. And that way they know what's coming. And also knowing that when you get named after somebody, that person is sort of like your godmother or your godfather, right? They're still kind of responsible for like making sure you're good in life, taking care of you, making sure they're treating you as one of your own because essentially you have inherited their names. And so there you go. So that's kind of like the down and dirty about Bangla name and how people get named and so forth. Now let's jump into some root words or like some like stems that you can use to piece together like Bangla names when you see them. And I'm kind of just going to go from like easy to hard and then just tell you what you might see. And also remember that because we don't really have a standardized way of writing, the names, the spelling of the names might be a little different. But then if you really sound it out and say the name out loud, it basically will mean the same thing and so forth. So if you ever see me like spell a name and it's a little different and that's your name and it's spelled just a little differently, but it's pronounced the same way, just know that it's because of spelling differences due to lack of a standardized way of writing. So the first one is ndem. Ndem. Ndem means God. A lot of names start with ndem or has ndem at the beginning or at the end. So ndem at the beginning or ndem at the end. The C is earth or soy. So earth. So it's C. So you can say ndem C is like the creator God. The C is God. Nkam means chief. So if you see income in your name, there's chief somewhere in your name. And chief is sort of like an advisor to the king, right? So there's a king and there's all like his advisor. Think about that as like the director of whatever, right? Like there's a CEO and then you have the director below them. Fun means king. So there are two words for king. There's the big king and the tiny king. So think about it as when you're talking about God in very general terms, you usually use the lowercase g. But then if you're talking about God, but you're talking about like say God in Christianity, you often use the capital letter G. So in the Bangwa tribe, when you say fun, it specifically means the king of the land. So the king of the land. And that is a very specific name that not everybody, or like, and not every name you will see that word fun. You will rarely see it with people who are not related to like the royal family and so on. So fun means king, king of the land. For or for, spell FOFUA, or FOR basically means king, and that's the little G. You're not like the king of like the whole region, but you might be like a sub king, right? Think about like the president and then the governor of like a state. So the president ruled the whole country, and then the governor rules the whole state. And then the war for will kind of be similar to like governor, right? And so again, for will be spelled FOR, FO, or FUA, and that means king. So if you have any of those words in your name, it kind of alludes to like something about being a king. In king, in king, in king is NKENG, and it means like the peace plan. So like that's a plan in the Bangwa land that is often used to symbolize peace. In a lot of instances when there are special occasion, you will often see people using the plan to dance, carrying the plan, or using the plan to perform certain ceremony, and that plan basically symbolizes peace. Also, when somebody died and they bury them, instead of having like a tombstone, they usually plan the peace plan, and that plan is really like durable in terms of like you can cut a branch of it and then plant it, water it, and it will grow. You don't have to like uproot the whole plant for it to grow. So like get a stem, plant it somewhere, put soil, water, and then it grows. So in King is the peace plant. Anyi, Anyi, ANYI is sort of short for like the mother of twins, or the mother who gives birth to multiple kids at once. And in the Bangla culture, twins are like second to God, kind of. People think that twins have special powers, twins are to be adored, twins are supposed to be respected. When you see, when we have special occasion, oftentimes the people who kind of open the ceremony after prayers is like the twins and the mothers of twins, and so they'll come and they will dance, and that is just to kind of purify the environment, chase away any like unpleasant energy, and then you can kind of start to party and so on. And so in the Bangla culture, really twins, anybody who has twins, they are incredibly respected and so forth. So Anyi is often like uh referencing twins. So Anyi is often like referencing something to do with somebody who has given birth to twins. And the opposite of that for male is tiny. Tiny is a male who has twins or has given birth to multiple sets of kids at once, while Aini is a female who has had twins or given birth to multiple sets of children at once. Um, and then Mb is basically like grandma or the older um, man in the community who is like respected, revealed, and like kind of is people like and appreciate him. Like somebody who kind of embraces the community, is kind of very active in the community, and that is specifically for men. The opposite of that is Ime. Ime is literally the same thing, but women. So if you have Ime in your name, it's alluding to like you being a woman who is like respected by community. There are a lot of names with Nkong in it. And so if you see Nkong, Nkong. It means love. You see Ngong in your name, it means life. Ndui means woman or like wife. Ndui means woman or wife. Ndui means woman or wife. Atem, 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 if you really translate it from word to word, means he or she who shoots. But contextually, it sort of means somebody who conquers or who defeats an enemy or defeats something. So atem, anu is like something. It could be just anu just means something, like something has happened, something is going on. Aka, aka. So aka means drum. Aka to that's an example of a name. So asong means sort of messenger. Messenger. Ngu Ngu is sort of like a bird. There's I don't know if we really I know exactly what bird it is in English, but it's like a some type of big bird. And then India is house. I know there are probably more words out there that we can use to break down the names, but those are the ones that I can remember. Also, one thing I want to let you know is that oftentimes people name their kids for one thing and they might completely become the opposite or become that thing if that thing wasn't particularly the most positive thing. And so you can see people changing the name of their kids. For example, growing up, we used to have this kid named Ndiambu. Ndiambu basically mean like destructive house. Nobody wants a destructive house. That kid was destructive. When I say destructive, he will go steal, he will go do all sort of things. And then it's just kind of like he was embodying his name so much that it was like becoming very problematic. So they changed his name to something else because it's like if you name your kid one thing. And it's like, it doesn't even matter what the intention behind the name is. It just mattered that that kid is now embodying things that are not positive, and you don't want that to happen. So you can change your child name and so forth. So that often will happen. Okay, just one more thing before I leave. In the Bangwa culture too, there are particular names set up for different groups of like people. For example, for twins, they have very particular names. Do not ask me why. I have no idea behind that. I tried to look around and I really didn't find a reason for why we have very specific names for twins. And also after twins are born, the person who come after them also have a very specific name, and I also have no idea why. So here are some of the twins name I was able to kind of write down. The first one is Asonyi. Asonyi is a twin name. So if you see somebody named Asonyi or you are named after somebody named Asonyi, either they were a twin or somebody in your generation was a twins. If you have Asonyi, that means twins runs in your family. And you don't have to look any further. So there you go. And also Atemafe is also a twin name. Folife is also a twin name. Ajongafe is also a twin name. Nchonganyi is also a twin name. And so there you go. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please subscribe and support and follow me so we can have more subscribers and I can continue kind of releasing more lessons. Thank you very much.